episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome everybody again to another episode of our show with another truly fascinating guest who is helping to create a better tomorrow on many different fronts. We have the honor today of being joined by Tessy Antony De Nassau, who is social entrepreneur, businesswoman, philanthropist, advocate and public speaker, activist, mother, and jazz aficionado. She is currently founder and partner of the global consultancy Finding Butterflies Consulting Limited, co-founder of the fashion brand Human Highness, host of the podcast series Tessy Antony De Nassau Zoom O'Clock, and associate of LSE Ideas at the London School of Economics. Tessy is actively involved in promoting a number of issues, including global health and women's rights, serves as a UNAIDS Global Advocate for young women, adolescent girls, and is a patron to the United Nations Association. Her commitments to education can be seen in her foundation, Professors Without Borders, which brings together top-level educators and global experts to students worldwide in order to develop various forms of talent. In the past, she spent 5 years in the Luxembourg military, during where she was deployed in Kosovo as a peacekeeper and the only woman of her draft. She's received numerous awards over the years, including Women of the Decade Award from the Women Economic Forum, the Mrongovius Medal for Humanitarian Involvement, the Global Empowerment Award for her work in Africa, named Leader of the Year in 2019 for Leadership Academy in Luxembourg, and received Honorary Doctorate from the Paris College of the Arts in 2019. She's been a very active member of the Luxembourg Group de Support Psychologique, GSP, for the past 5 years, and was awarded in 2020 the Freedom of the City of London for her humanitarian work and her education work worldwide. Tessy graduated from Richmond, the American International University in London with a bachelor's degree in international relations, writing her thesis on the rise of nationalism in Europe, earned her master's degree of SOAS, University of London Institutions Diplomacy, where she wrote her master's thesis on biologic terrorism. In addition to all that, she has a degree in a trauma psychology certificate, teaching assistant certificate, and holds certificates in sustainable business from the Harvard Business School and pandemics and epidemics from the University of California. Wow. Tessy De Nassau, Antony De Nassau, thank you for taking the time to come on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to see you. It's a fascinating background, everything you're doing. I'd love to hand you the floor just for a little bit. If you could take a little further time sort of to introduce yourself. You can take us sort of back to the early days, everything from where you grew up, your early interests in education and in some of these very diverse areas, and your experience in the Luxembourg Army. I think that'd be a great way to start everything off.
Of course. So I have been born and grew up in Luxembourg, which is a very small country in Europe, just next to France, Germany, and Holland. One of the highest GDPs in the world, but really extremely tiny, 700,000 inhabitants. And from these, around 30%, 38% foreigners. So we are already a very diverse and multicultural society. And that has definitely made me the open-minded and inclusive human being that I am. I grew up in Luxembourg mostly, but traveled the world and worked in quite a few countries around the world, including as well because of my military career, as you mentioned. So my military career, I started it when I was 17 and a half. So that would really be seen as a child soldier now. But at the time it was not. They have raised the age now to 18. But at the time, that is when the instruction de base, so the basic instruction started, the boot camp of 4 months, which I started with 120 human beings, including 6 women, and we finished in the 50s, and I was the only woman left. After that, I was deployed to Kosovo as the only woman of my draft when I was 18 and a half, first time away from my parents, first time away from Luxembourg, really. I think before that, I was really just going to Blankenberg in Belgium with the train to the seacoast with girlfriends for the day. So that was exciting as it gets without my parents. So definitely I learned a lot. There as well, learned what war and other effects of violence can do to a society. Was almost had attempts of sexual abuse by other military. So it doesn't just happen to the civilians, but it also happens between military a lot. Hence, my affiliation with UNAUK, as you mentioned, as patron. They focus on UN peacekeeping and the issue with violence and sexual abuse within peacekeeping troops. So I was a peacekeeper at the time there. After that, I was always studying did my trauma psychology degree, did graphic design and teaching. Even though the only thing that I was pursuing longer was the trauma psychology one. It has been 8 years actually, and I just left them a little bit more than a year ago, so a little bit more than the first anniversary of Corona. For the others, I did them for fun, but I realized that being an assistant teacher for really small kids is an amazing profession, and I really hold my gratitude very high to these educators. I did the degree, I know what it is, I love doing the degree, but I realized coming home then to my own, I just had no more energy. So I realized that that is definitely not for me, because, you know, taking care of other kids with all my love and then coming home and being tired was not what I want to do. And so I pursued other things, went back to university, as you mentioned, quite late after my military career, after living in Geneva and London, working as a diplomat in the different embassies. Did then my international relations degree and diplomacy and institutions. As already a mom while working, which was interesting, and kind of paved the path to where I am today. I'm pendling between London, Luxembourg, and Switzerland at the moment. Corona has not been easy on anyone, and nor on us. And yeah, I'm in London at the moment, which is definitely interesting on experiencing the pandemic here. And yeah, we'll see what is tomorrow, because I think with the pandemic, you can't really see anymore where will I be in a week or in 6 months, because everything just changes by the hour. So that is a new skill we all needed to learn, to just trust into the process and also deal with our insecurities of not being able to control what we can't control. So yeah, being home, homeschooling, and working from home at the moment, as you do too, and trying to keep safe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Something we're all involved in, but as you said before, it's what we have to do. You're involved in many things, and obviously you just spoke extensively about your focus on education, which is extremely important in the world today. You were involved in setting up this organization, Professors Without Borders. It's a social enterprise sponsored by one of your alma maters as well. And here you've gone rather broad in terms, you're active in Colombia, in various parts of West Africa, Southeast Asia. Talk a little bit about this model, if you would. Once again, tying in your passion with education and the next generation coming along. And then also, obviously, as you said, education has been so impacted by the coronavirus. Any interesting sort of insights there as we have transitioned all online to how the Professors Without Borders model has been running?
Yes, of course. So for me, education was always a passion. So I was already educating my teddy bears when I was 4 or 5 with a chalkboard in a tent that I built outside my parents' house, driving my mother nuts, taking all of her resources, blankets and umbrellas to build all of these things. But it has been always really important, and I always really liked it. Then I was mentoring really hundreds and hundreds of women around the world. And 5 years ago, I sat together with my 2 co-founders, Majak Walker and Dr. Carolyn Warren, at Regents Cafe. And I was a visiting lecturer at Regents teaching on biological terrorism. And we were just reflecting on the fact that in London, also in the US, students have such a luck because they can access all of these amazing teachers, have a fantastic graduate program and undergraduate program if they want to, and also if they can afford, but mostly if they want to. And a lot of people, especially in London, they are very wealthy to go and attend these prestigious universities. And so we said, we want to make that available for everyone and for free, which I think is the most important part, that everyone gets that opportunity to have teachers such as my co-founders and myself, and not just here in London with our students, we love them, but also around the world, which brings them an opportunity, but also us gives us a learning, a cultural exchange. So Professor Without Borders was born. Professors Without Borders has been growing enormously, as you have mentioned. We are in 9 regions around the world now, and we work with around 30 to 37 staff around a year. Everyone, including myself and my 2 co-founders, no one is paid. So we really, really give our time, which is kind of like our remuneration, because time is the most valuable commodity we have, to run this and put every cent we have into the program. With that said, it is really to reverse the brain drain, to really bring quality education, but it is fit specifically to the social, economic, political climate of the regions we are in. So it's not like we bring the education we do at LSE, for example, or regions with our students here and take these books and implement them in these regions, because that's not what works. And we have seen that model fail when students from African regions or from Thailand or from different other South American regions or wherever, China, Asia, when they come and teach, when they learn here, that when they go back, they can't often use it because it doesn't work with their cultures, it doesn't work with their economic environment and the resources as well. And so we adapt to what they need year by year. So every year is different. We make sure that when we partner with educational institutions, that we are really in check in what do they actually need, where can we bring value, and then we recruit students, as many as possible, through an open public call with these institutions, and everyone can really come. Like in Sierra Leone, for example, we held a school in an all-boys school, but we also had girls, which I think was so important that we mixed that, and these boys they have never been taught with girls. So at the beginning, it was a bit of a bombshell and a lot of tensions. And after, you really could see how their whole way of thinking changed by seeing the value of each other and the differences you can bring between the different genders. So that was just a fantastic learning. Now with Corona, as you mentioned, of course, we could not deploy our teachers. It was impossible. So we as well needed to innovate. We still believe that people-to-people teaching is really important. We love online teaching, and there's amazing resources on Coursera, and you have all of the Khan University. So you have all of these fantastic resources. And I myself have done courses on Coursera, and my children do some on the Khan University and so on. I think they're fantastic. But still, if you can teach in person, it just brings so much more value for the students, and it just goes so much deeper, because that human connection just makes a difference for us. So we will go back to that. But in the meantime, as we were innovating, of course, we also created then a think tank without borders, where we do partnerships with institutions, businesses, and academic partners from around the world with their papers, where we publish them, co-author them together, do research projects on the effect of Corona in pandemic times. We created way more online events. We just had one on the Corona and the mental health impacts on the COVID pandemic on the students, because as you said before, students, they can't go back to universities, or just some of them, but that whole experience is missing, right? Yep. And then they graduate from these prestigious universities, which are often overpriced, and they can't find a job because there's no jobs out there. So you have all of that unemployment happening now. So what we have done is that we work very strongly with our alumni community, but also with students who have not been our students from all prestigious universities, where we help them with their CV, where we create all of that content for them. Online lectures. With that, also the online teaching lectures came, where you, for example, or whoever listens says, I have something incredible to teach. I'm an academic, or I'm a professional, or whatever it is, and I want to give a guest lecture. And we organize it, and students can just click in from all over the world. So the pandemic has definitely enabled for us the reach that we didn't have before, that we can have just so many different cultures on that one call, which I think is fantastic. So we have taken advantage of that. And of course, as every single other charity and company, we have taken advantage of the fact that we were all home, that we could save money because we didn't have any programs running, and really work on our back end. Our website is being redone by a company in Geneva, which I'm so grateful. Our annual report was just finalized by a company from the UK, Links, which I'm very grateful. And we're really cleaning up. Not that it was not good before, but it's just really time to optimize everything as we're home anyways. So that has been great. And yeah, hopefully this summer, deploying again. So fingers crossed, we're talking about it. I have also found an incredible sponsor, fingers crossed, from Switzerland, who will help us pay for the teachers for this summer, which I need to go on the 1st of June to pitch the proposal. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, let's hope for the summer. I will be traveling then as well. Maybe not directly in the summer, but a little bit after, because I'm due to give birth to my little baby in the summer. So we'll see when we can. But Professor Sodapolis, definitely, we had the chance that we didn't have a head cost, which saved us as a charity. So we also became a charity which helps for donations and tax benefits for the donors. But yeah, let's hope we can get deployed. If not, we will innovate more as others as well. And we're just so grateful that we made it, because a lot of charities didn't make it. And so for anyone who's listening and who knows us, thank you for the support as well, because without that, we would not still be here with the ideas and just giving us all of that free services, such as the website and others. I think it's just so amazing, because that really helped us to survive during these really difficult times.
Outstanding. Tessy, you are also another major initiative and interest of yours is your work with UNAIDS, which I mean, obviously we're all sitting here in the midst of a pandemic, but we can't forget about we talk about them in the past on other shows, the big three of tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV, which take millions from this earth every year. They didn't go away. Talk a little bit about your work with this organization and specifically on some sort of what you're seeing, sort of what are the current trends. Obviously, COVID has taken a lot of resources and attention, but HIV is still here and it's still a major issue in many parts of the globe.
Exactly. No, and it's really, really, really a big problem. So UNAIDS has appointed a new leader, as you probably heard. A woman, which makes me, of course, extremely happy. But then again, the leaders they had before, the two men, Michael and Luis, were also fantastic human beings, and I loved working with them. But now having a woman, I think it's a time for that, and they did a really great transition. So I'm very grateful for that I'm part of this. And again, also to my colleagues at UNAIDS who listen to this, I think it's fantastic. Then with UNAIDS, what is happening, well, with the HIV AIDS pandemic, is that now, because of COVID, as you mentioned before, briefly, the resources have been allocated towards the pandemic, which creates that lack of resources and funding towards the HIV AIDS pandemic, but also other illnesses such as obesity, such as cancer, such as all kinds of, like really, really a lot of illnesses that are still there, and that's not good. Also, because of the pandemic, now we have a fatigue in the media, so you don't even hear about HIV/AIDS anymore. We have had a spike in several countries on that as well, because women are unable to protect themselves, specifically in African regions. It's still being seen as the white man disease, and now with the pandemic, even more. And in some African states, even some leaders say that they don't have COVID at all, because they don't test, right? So if you don't test, you can't know. And it's just, and again, they call it the white man's disease as well. And it's just, all of these misunderstandings and lack of communication and resources create these really big underlining pandemics within the pandemic. And so I'm just scared that, over the next year or two that this lack of funding and resources and also advocacy of public awareness will trigger a spike again with these illnesses. And HIV/AIDS, specifically for young women and adolescent girls, has been really, really bad because, you know, they can't access resources, not just because of the funding, the lack of funding for the resources, but also the logistics. They can't go to the hospital. Their streets are not good enough. There is no transport. A lot of people talk about transport, and also a lot of women have been forced now to be at home and take care of their loved ones. And so we have all of that unpaid care work, which is a burden as well. And you don't want to go outside because you don't want anyone to get sick. Right. So as they say, as also with cancer, they say that the numbers are going down, but the numbers are not going down, as is with cancer, because people are not going to test themselves, so they don't know. So I think that the numbers are actually spiking again, but people think they're not because people don't go for these cancer screens. People don't go for these HIV/AIDS tests because the health systems are just overwhelmed. Like here in the UK, for example, people don't go to the doctor or hospital if they don't need to. So here in the UK, that is one of the countries where they said, oh, the cancer rates have gone down. No, it hasn't. We all know it hasn't. It's just people are scared to go to the hospital, especially elderly people, and also people in the age where you are more prone to develop cancer, right? When you're in your 50s or 60s, pancreas and ovary and breast, you know, all of these things. And it's just, that's a really big problem. And it's also a huge lack of communication. So yes, we really need to bring that back on the agenda and just talk about it, not to belittle the pandemic, because the pandemic has been terrible and it has cost a lot of lives, but we're losing a lot of people to other illnesses, which, for example, cancer could be prevented if we find it early enough. But for a lot of people, it's already too late, because if, for example, the 1-year anniversary of Corona now, that people didn't go out or didn't go to the doctor, a year makes a huge difference, because some people get diagnosed and if they have surgery straight away, it can be contained, but if not, 3 to 6 months later, they die. And that makes a huge difference. So I really hope that our governments all over the world, not just in the UK, but also in Switzerland, also in Luxembourg, also in African states, also in the US specifically, where now a lot of people have lost their jobs. They're talking about 41 million people. And with a job in the US, when you lose that, you lose your health security. And within that, you can't pay for your mortgage, so you lose your house. Like the US is a bit more brutal with that, because the security system, the security bubble, the social security bubble is almost non-existent, because everything is privatized. So for people who cannot afford to have private health insurance, it's a disaster, right? And so I really do hope that our leaders take this very serious, that the pandemic is there, and yes, we need to keep safe, and we need to spread the word about how to contain the pandemic and how to keep our loved ones safe and get people vaccinated as fast as possible. Absolutely. But we also need to recognize that there's a lot of other things happening in the world, including now, which I would claim, the pandemic of mental health illnesses and suicide, which has been crazy, especially among young people. Because young people are not used to stay home. Young people don't know how to cope with this. They're online all the time. And even when I'm on my phone too much, I get a little bit anxious, and sometimes I need to really take away my phone. Imagine our youngsters. They can't see their friends. They can't go outside. They can't find a job. They can't go to school. They're just stuck at home. What does that do to them? No one talks about that. So that as well, the effect of this is still to be seen in total, because not a lot of people talk about it. So yeah, I think there will be a lot of things coming up slowly, which should not be ignored.
Not at all. These are amazing points, and they it feeds into my next talking point with you. You know, you have been extremely passionate about the whole area of integrative medicine, which is a fascinating form of care that looks at us. We're not just this body. We are our social networks. We interact with the environment. We mental component of it all. Talk a little bit about your passion for this particular area. Obviously, you're focused on mental health. You mentioned earlier issues, sort of the military with sexual violence, but also you saw sort of the war zone and the PTSD component. Walk us through a little bit of what you look at in this particular area in terms of your integrative medicine interests. And as a second point of that, sorry, because you brought it up, could you also address just a little bit of your thoughts on children and social media? I know these are two sort of separate issues, but they get back to the mental health, because I know I'm crazy about these kids over here with their social media lately and what's doing to them. I'll take that one any way you want.
No, for sure. Well, let's start with that one, just because it flows best with what I just said, and then go to the integrative medicine with the mental health. Yeah, with the children, I am a mom who really dislikes my kids to be on the phone all the time. So my kids normally just have their phones on the weekend. And now we are forced as parents to see our kids on the screen 8 hours a day. My kids are not in use for that. And so they create these aggressions inside them. We go outside and everything. We're lucky we can. Like in Switzerland, for example, we even have a forest. It's a very lucky thing to have, because I know a lot of people don't have that. And when it's really locked down and you don't even have a little balcony, having your kids at home is crazy, right? For the kids, for the parents, for everyone involved. And so now we are forced that we need to accept that technology to such a huge extent. Yeah. And that cannot be healthy. It just can't. And now the kids are on their phones all the time, because that is also the only way they can stay in touch with their friends. And you don't want to take that away from them, because they need that interaction. So now you see they get in use almost of these avatars on Instagram and TikTok and everything, creating these fake lives, because everything is so perfect, right? And what they have at home and how everything is, and And I think it creates these pressures inside them, these tensions that they don't realize that they are actually there, but they are. It will fuel on you eventually, your insecurities and all of these things. And I see it with my oldest, for example, because he starts comparing himself with others, and he's 15. And, and how he wants to look and all of these things. It's a normal process. But I think now that it is online like that, it's so much stronger, because he, for example, he Googled himself. That is a component my children sadly have, which a lot of children don't have. My children are in the public eye. And so my kids have a fan page, and from people that they don't know. And so my son said, oh, I saw these pictures and that person is writing that about me and here and there. So they have that extra pressure. And it scares me, because I'm teaching them how to use these channels, because they need to be aware of their public image and how a picture will affect them more than anyone else, which is not in the public eye. But it's just really, at the end of the day, we all us parents, with all of our children, we are faced with the reality that there is that new monster coming, which can create so much disimbalance in our little human beings' mental health, but also in their physical appearance and how good they feel in their own skin, that we're not prepared for that. We're not psychologists. And social media, they take absolutely advantage of that. There's no protection online. There's all of that crap, and there's a lot of bullying happening, and all of this misinformation, especially also with Facebook and everything, all of these, when a kid looks at something, automatically the feed changes to really feed into that interest, even though there's a lot of interest a kid should have, but they already are being pushed into a lane. And that is a problem, right? So we have all of these very strong opinions that are coming up, which are not as diverse as they should be. And we parents try to educate them right on the left, middle, and right. What are these political parties? What do they do? Not to say we favor one, but they need to understand all in order to understand the political system they're growing up, right? And the way they are already being framed into mold, into being something, right? And that awareness is missing when using these social media channels and everything. And also, since I was a child, I always wanted to create that good news channel right? What are the good news? There's so much amazing stuff happening out there, but no one wants to talk about it. And I pitched it to an American producer, and he said, Tessy, this is amazing. But I wanted to always to be the Oprah or the Ellen DeGeneres of good news. And they said to me, Tessy, your concept and everything you have submitted is fantastic, but no one is going to buy that because bad news make money. People want to see that other people struggle so that they can feel better about their own struggles. That is what it is, right? And I want to change that, and I don't know how. So if anyone who is listening to this has an idea, get in touch, you know? And so that's for the mental health component. So I think teaching meditation to our youngsters, brain breaks from all of these electronics is important. My children, to be honest with you, and I go over to the integrative medicine now, for me, it's very important, and I do it every day. I need to do it a bit more again because I'm starting to get anxious again. Just, you know, there's these insecurities, and also with me. So I feel like, oof, I need to meditate again more. But my children, they find it boring. They really don't like it. They say, why should we do this and everything? That body awareness is just lacking because none of their friends do this, and they don't want to be seen as being weird. So I always try to make them understand that the health benefits are so great. But if their friends don't do it, no one does it. And I try to pitch it to the schools, even said, hey, I am happily giving online classes on that. And it's just so difficult because they say we don't have time to do it because the kids' curriculum is already so full. And I said, yes, but you have no idea how that will affect their learning, their memory, you know, the way they interact with each other. It will just benefit the whole education system in its entirety, that half an hour spent a day by having a mindful meditation together. So it's not a weird thing to do, or you're not alternative towards your friends. So it fits the tribe kind of thing, right? You're cool as everyone else because everyone does it. It's just the benefits are so much greater, but we are just not there yet, right? We are not there yet. And I have, for example, I have posted this post, which I will tell you now on Instagram, where I said, I talked about the educational system, where I said one pie chart said what I learned in school, right? So half of the pie was how to multiply. It looks like this, but for the people who tune in audio, they can't see it. So I will explain what it is. So how to multiply 8 times 7, for example, and what H20 stands for. That's 2 sides. But then I put what I wish I learned as well in school. It doesn't say as well, but I would add the word as well, because we need the traditional education system just to fit the box, because that is what it is. Sure. You need to be categorized in boxes, otherwise you will not get the degrees and the jobs you want, because that is how people are being seen still today. I'm not a fan of it, but it's the reality. But what I wish that we have also learned is the importance of mental health, mindfulness, self-esteem, reframing negative thoughts, self-care, emotional regulation, about personal finance, importance of sleep, like all of these things, right? And some people really went rogue on me and said, oh, they should learn that at home and everything. Like really, some comments were really quite strong. I agree, we should have learned all of that at home. But let's face the truth. Some kids don't have the blessing or have parents that are involved. That is the fact. They go to school and the school really raises them. Then other kids who have very involved parents, some don't know how to do that, right? How to incorporate these topics into the everyday. And now with the pandemic, some parents don't even have the brain space to add this to when it comes to homework after, and all of these things that the kids already need to do, that when the kids are done with all of that, the parents are just relieved. Like I sometimes have 3 hours of homework after the teaching with them a day. And then we are like at 6, 7 p.m. in the evening, and my kids just have enough that I then sit there and talk to them about self-care and compassion and kindness and mental health. They are done. Yeah. They don't want to talk about that anymore with me. So I think we need to include that more in school as well. So that's to wrap up the topic on mental health with children and social media. I could talk about that forever, as you can tell. So going over now to integrative medicine then. I started doing my PhD and my MD in it online because of the pandemic. As a lot of people realized during the pandemic, as you're home anyways, working from home, you have a little bit of extra time. And I thought, what can I do in my extra time that also serves me as a human being and makes me learn about something that is important to me? And I had a huge burnout years ago, really bad burnout. So I couldn't eat properly, swallow. I couldn't walk properly. My legs were really weak and shaking. So I needed help to just hold myself, and was taking quite a lot of Lexotan and Xanax during the day just to keep myself going to being a mother, working, and having my public appearance, so that people wouldn't realize that I was actually really struggling inside me. Because mental health and anxiety, I wasn't depressed, but I had huge episode of anxiety. And that was also when my marriage broke down and everything. And it was just, you know, these things are not visible to the eye, which is the big problem as well with mental health. You can look as healthy as the sun, but inside you, no one will see that. And if you don't talk about it, no one will ever notice it if you don't want to. And that was the case for me, because I needed to deal with all of that, and telling people how I feel would just at that time would just make it so much difficult for me, because I needed to explain and then take everyone's advice. And then some people would say, you exaggerating, you know, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to expose myself even more and just deal with myself. And I went to see so many doctors, psychologists, and I said, you know, I have so much anxiety and I don't know what to do. I couldn't drive anymore, take the train. Just in a room with people, I would get really dizzy and feel not so well. It was really to such an extent that I didn't know what to do anymore. And the doctors were just saying, oh, take these medications. And because you're depressed. And I said, no, I'm not depressed. I'm anxious. It's a difference. Already there with psychologists, they just tick a box and you were all taking the same medication. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to look into the alternative space, because there must be something out there which doesn't give me these medications straight away, which at the end probably make me bipolar, or just really just patch up a bleeding, which will bleed. And then I need to exchange the plaster, because the bleeding doesn't stop, because we're not looking at the problem. We're just looking at the symptoms and we're numbing them. And so I said, no, I said, this has been produced over years and I need to deal with it. And it's not going to be pleasant and it's going to take time, but I'm going to learn now how to fix myself without medication, without chemical medication. And don't get me wrong, if you have your gut hanging out of your stomach or your bones when you fall or something, go and see a doctor in the hospital. You know, alternative medicine does not fix that. Yeah. You need to have someone who knows mechanics, because that is really traditional medicine is a lot about mechanics, right? And it's really important. But I think nowadays we are that far in knowing and recognizing scientifically that alternative medicines can help so much more with the psyche and with other problems, which the mechanics and the just the fixing of broken bones and other things cannot. Just to look, as you said before, into the 5 bodies we have different layers around us. And it's just not about the physical body, but it's the body as a whole, right? You have your spirit, you have your energies, you have your chakras, you know, all of these things that are connected within your body that a lot of people don't realize. Energy is everything. We are all about energies, right? And then, you know, to deny that that is not true is wrong, because you feel a chemistry when you meet a person, for example. Sure. And you feel when someone is hurting you and it leaves something inside you, and it's not physical, but it is anger and bitterness and all of these things. They are like being cut. And yes, we don't see these wounds, but eventually they are there and they need to be treated eventually, because everything that happens to us, you will get a bill at the end. Is it sooner or later? That is depending on how much, but the body stores everything, and your skin specifically is the biggest organ we have. Yep. And you store a lot of emotions in your skin that, you know, some people listening maybe have had that feeling that sometimes just a change of temperature or wind blowing into you from the side can trigger panic or can trigger some kinds of thoughts or emotion. That's because your skin has stored something from your childhood or when you're growing up, or even as an adult or adolescent, that you did not realize it was traumatic to you. And I think the alternative medicine space can help so much. And so for me, my MD, it doesn't even exist yet in Europe, an MD in alternative medicine. It's an American university because obviously, well, sadly, the Americans are way forward with that. They're really considering the body as a whole with all kinds of different ways of treating it. And alternative medicines is one of them. We're getting better in Europe, but still there's no program here which would give you an MD in that. But the US does. And so I found that online. And it's just so interesting because I learned so much about myself, but also about, how to use aromatherapy, NLP, hypnotherapy, acupuncture in different ways. And just about also the admin of the administration system. How much do you actually pay for a traditional medicine treatment if you could prevent it with alternative medicine in the long run, which is so much cheaper, but not recognized. And it's just, all of these different therapies you can do, and just understanding your body through the different energy points and how you can trigger change so quickly if you want to learn about this. But yeah, I think we're still a long way to go, but it helped me a lot. And that's why I think it's such an important new field of study that needs to be explored, including then as well, as you said before, PTSD, right? We have it in the military, but we have it as well for divorce. We have it for all kinds of effects that happen to us. PTSD is quite strong and can be reflective in different ways, depending on how you take it. And we have now, for example, John Hopkins or Imperial College here in London, who are very strong in the studies of psychedelics.
Yep.
And it's not being seen as an alternative medicine yet. So in my doctorate, I want to do my PhD now in it. So I'm finishing up my MD, but to write my PhD, I need to find a subject, and I wanted to do it on PTSD with psychedelics. And they said psychedelics is not an integrative medicine yet. It's not being recognized, which I think is interesting because I believe it is, because it is natural, right? Mushrooms and all of these other remedies we can use. Of course, LSD is chemical, but you have all of these Mother Earth substances which are used already to treat anxiety and PTSD, depression and suicidal thoughts and negativity and all of that stuff. So I think we are not far from it, but we still have a long way to go, that people don't just say, oh my God, are you taking drugs? Because we still have that here. When I talked about me researching psychedelics, some papers picked it up as, oh my God, she's taking drugs. No, I'm not. I'm just studying the natural components that are available to us, which are not chemical, right? So it's a really interesting field, and I'm really excited to be part of it and see it develop over the next decade, because I think it will. And we have seen with funds and other investors how much this field will grow, because the value is just enormous, and a lot of people are starting to recognize that. So I think it's not going to be far from becoming a normality that people also see that as a way of curing themselves from different illnesses, other than just stamping it up with antidepressant medicine, as we have been used to do so. So I'm excited about that development and to be part of this, because I think we just need to know and put our own time in it in order to make a change, right? Because laws and regulations have been written by human beings over the history of time. And that means as well that they can be changed and alternated and complemented, which is the perfect word for it, complemented, because just because it doesn't serve us now doesn't mean it wasn't valid before, So what we had before for treating all of these illnesses has been perfect for the time. But now it's time to maybe also add to the choice, that people have a choice of how they want to treat their bodies, and keep themselves healthy.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've spoken to several people in the psychedelics research space in the past, and it's amazing what these substances can do with short-term exposure. And yeah, as you were saying with the nature, I always like to point out, look, the mushrooms and the plant, they were here. They've been here a couple billion years before us, so there's a reason why they do what they do, and there's a lot to learn from these. Whether it's the mushrooms, whether it's the plants and the trees, we've lost our respect, I think, for nature, and we have to regain it. And psychedelic research is one area that'll bring it back. I'm all for it. Tessy, aside from obviously your own research and work in this area, your philanthropy and your humanitarian work, you are an active entrepreneur as well. You recently founded a company, Human Highness, a clothesline. Talk for a couple of minutes about this. It mentioned on the website for warrior women. I'm sure more than just former military women can use these clothes, but at the same time, and obviously I think confidential, any interesting health and wellness brands that may be a part of Human Highness at some point as you create the portfolio?
Yes, so Human Highness is a brand which the name already existed actually for my co-founder Millie Meyer. So a lot of people say, oh, she now calls her brand like that because of her past. And it's actually not at all. So the name was already there and we just kept it. She said, what do you think? And I said, I think it's a beautiful name because it really shows about the grandness and the just the magic of being human, right? Because highness has always been seen throughout history as just being elevated, that person that is on a pedestal and different and grand and all elegant and all of these things, just that perfection. And I think it went really well with the brand, so we kept it. And Human Highness is a cape brand, which is a brand for now, cape brand, which is for women specifically at the moment. But we are looking into a also series for men. So I talked to my partner and he was really excited about it when I showed him some of the drawings that we did for men, but also for children. So kind of like a little collection for them, because there's just so many things you can do. And right now, actually, people who want to subscribe to our newsletter, it's news@human-highness.com. And we will be launching our spring collection now, which is actually, the theme is about, it was never just a dress, which is a phrase we all know really well. And you have that beautiful purple cape, which is made out of, it's completely within the frame of sustainability and for the climate friendly. So it's all organic. Is it organic wool or cotton? Organic silk, it's all hand drawn on it, it's hand knitted and stitched. Everything is really made by woman for woman in Estonia. That's where my co-founder is from, and they have amazing organic materials there. So that's why we kept it there. And her grandmother is actually doing everything by hand. And we have no stock, which also goes with the sustainability, because we only produce as demand is there. So someone goes on the website and wants something, we then, after payment, produce it bespokely for our clients. And so the latest series will have trench coats as well. And that purple cape, which is already the color really for women, the purpleness of the cape is just so, it's so beautiful. But at the same time, it becomes a dress. And hence you have that, it was not just a dress. It was never just a dress, because the dress becomes then a cape. And in the summer, you can put it over your shoulders and it becomes the normal cape as you would expect for our brand and the image of the brand as it has been so far. But also it becomes a very elegant dress for the night, or you can wear it as a day dress as well. So it's super versatile. And again, just brings that extra play within the discussion. And the aim is really to empower women from within, because when you wear a cape compared to a jacket, you walk differently. People look at you, because capes, it's just, you are exposed more than if you would wear a jacket. It's just normal. And I see it all the time when I wear my capes. People even stop me on the street and say, wow, where did you get that? And I said, well, I made it. And they said, wow, it's just so different and it's heavy. So it pulls your back automatically to just walk up straighter and with more confidence. And I think that is what we wanted to do, and to create that community around it. So now comes then to your question with other health brands. Absolutely. I think it's really about also creating that kind of like members club, if you want, between these warrior women, but also men, and for children in the second phase now, which we're working on, to really bring these women together and see what can we do with each other. What's your experience with your cape? How did it make you feel? But also give us your advice. What keeps you sane? What do you like doing? What would you improve? And at the same time as well, we're looking into, different colors, how the color influences your mood, how different smells you can put on the capes can influence you as Ayurvedic or aromatic therapy. And then we have as well, I personally are looking into creating a sub-brand with that, which would go then with Human Highness Home, but home being not just the physicality of what we have in our house, but Human Highness Home as our home is our body. So what do we put in? Vitamins, minerals, and all of these things, and how you can, not just through the physicality of the cape, bring the goddess out of you, but also with you are what you eat, you are what you put inside you, and how you can amplify even more this fact. So these are all ideas that are definitely on our board. When do we realize them? Depends on Corona, just because accessing these resources, specifically because ours are so natural friendly. They are as friendly as it gets. Of course, maybe in a few years' time, we realize that we could have done better, but for now, we don't know. This is really the best that we can imagine we can do for the environment within that domain. And so with that said, we don't produce fast fashion, and having the best of the best and work with the best of the best takes time, because you can't, with the shipping and everything, it has been quite interesting during times of COVID, because sometimes our clients needed to wait 2 weeks instead of just a few days to receive their cape because of that. But I think these capes and the collections that we are creating are really collections that you keep forever. Yes, you can have a few capes because they will be versatile, they will be different. We only have 2 seasons. So we do summer and spring, and spring and summer, and we do fall and winter. So we don't do 16 seasons as Zara or any other clothes line would do. We just do these 2. And within that, they will be versatile and different, but you can wear your cape forever. And the feeling is to also give it to your grandchild then, or, give it to your daughter one day or something, that it's really something you keep for a long time, that you create these memories as that superwoman with your cape.
Wonderful message. Wonderful message. I will have my wife and daughter both subscribed after we do the show. Really fascinating. Really, and we'll put the link in the bio as well to all of these sites. So Tessy, I have to ask you. Obviously, I've read that aside from having an avid interest in jazz music, you also played the saxophone.
I do.
I'm very interested in jazz, probably not as advanced, but over here in my collection, I have some sort of the standards, your Charlie Parker and your Miles Davis, some Diana Krall. When you come home after work in the afternoon, what do you put on the iPod, or what CDs do you put in? What's your passion with regard to jazz?
For me, it goes with the mood, because nowadays there's so many different varieties of jazz. Some are a bit stronger, some are a bit softer, some are a bit more melodic. And so for me, it depends on how I feel, firstly. But then what I like doing as well is just taking my saxophone, and that I haven't, while I was married, to be honest, I haven't played at all. I don't know why. It's just my saxophone was just standing there for a decade, and I just forgot about it. When I got then divorced, all of a sudden, I just took my saxophone again. And I just started playing it, and I realized, gosh, what I missed it, but I didn't know that I was missing it. I don't know. It's the oddest feeling ever. But now sometimes I just catch myself to just take it, because I have it always outside on its stand. So I never pack it up. I always see it, and it's next to the piano of my little one, and it's next to the guitar of my oldest son. So we are a very musician family, and my little one, he could practice a bit more, let me be honest with you, but my oldest, he really feels that music as well, and how much, you know, when he plays, he closes his eyes as well, and you really see it. It's beautiful. And I think music education is so important for kids, just as a side note. But yeah, so when I come home, I just like to take the sax, put on even commercial music sometimes, and then jazz off, like just improvise and just play along with that commercial music and just let it scream, you know. Sometimes it's just whatever, you know, like up and down, and others it's just a sound, and let my throat vibrate, and just feeling the vibration in my body. So it really just depends. One of the greatest people, for example, Quincy Jones, I met him personally, and I met him actually, he was in our house in Luxembourg. I didn't know he was there. He was sitting in the garden and with the family members, and I came down and I looked at him. I was like, oh my God, that was not long after Michael Jackson passed away. And as you know, they had a really, really intimate relationship. He was like father to Michael Jackson, right? And so as I came into the garden, he looked at me and he said, oh, you must be Tessy. And I said, yes, yes, yes. You know, I was like, And I was like, are you really seeing what you're seeing now? And he said, you play saxophone. So what do you play? And I just couldn't say anything. I was just looking at him. It was the most embarrassing moment, because I like talking, huh? But it's like I swallowed my tongue and I just looked at him. I was like, this is not possible. And I had such a blank. And I looked at him and I said, yeah. I love playing. And he was like, so who do you listen to? And I just couldn't say anything. Oh my God. Still today, I'm thinking, wow, what an awkward moment that was, but what a grand moment as well. You know, just having him there and actually asking about your personal interests, and just, you know, talking about Michael Jackson as well after, and the importance of music and how music heals as well. I think that's why after my divorce, it just gave me that back, you know. Also the breathing, what I really think is important as well, just as a side note as well, but it came into my mind and I think it's really important. I think the breathing, when you play an instrument, a wood instrument or even a metal instrument, but with which you need to blow into a tube, breathing, the regulation of the breathing is like a meditation. I think it is extremely, extremely well, because nowadays, a lot of anxiety happens because we don't realize how we breathe. We breathe too fast, or we don't breathe at all. Like I sometimes catch myself when I'm stressed that I don't breathe. And then I start feeling a bit unwell. And I think that the instrument and the regulation of it, because you need to do these different breathing rhythms in order to play the song you need to play, that you're looking at, or just to have the tune you want to have, just forces you automatically to regulate your breathing and make it a bit more regular again. And I think that has helped me so much as well. And thinking about it, I think I know what I'm doing after our talk, going upstairs to my little baby and have a little jazz session to myself. But yeah, I really love my saxophone. I have it since 23 years, the same one. No more now, oh my goodness. No, 23 years. No, it's much more. It's almost 26 years now that I have that specific one. The person who sold it to me, who taught me as well, just passed away as well in Luxembourg, an amazing, amazing saxophone player. And I bought it from him. It was the only saxophone, my mom told me that story when they bought it from him, that he would not baptize with beer. Which I think is a bad thing to do to your saxophone, but he did that with all of his saxophones. He baptized them with beer, so put really the beer in and baptize it, because he always said it would create a specific sound. But it was the only one he didn't do, and I was only 6.5 years old, so I'm glad he didn't. Yeah, that saxophone has been with me my whole life, and yeah, I'm very grateful for how it has helped me as well to create these memories, which are still with me today from my childhood, and everything else it has done to my musical education, really.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Tessy, it's really been an honor talking to you and hearing your story. Really, your passion towards these different issues on many fronts. I watched a video of yours recently. You gave a TED talk about creating magic in your life, the 3 pillars, and you talk about being bold. You talk about understanding who you are, and then you talk about the importance of connections. And I just want to really thank you for connecting here today, telling your story. For everybody that's going to be either listening to this episode on our podcast or watching on the YouTube channel, you've been listening to the amazing Tessy Antony De Nassau, social entrepreneur, businesswoman, philanthropist, mother, and soon to be mother again, jazz aficionado. Check out Finding Butterflies Consulting, Human Highness, and Tessy Antony De Nassau Zoom O'Clock show. Once again, Tessy, thank you again for your time. Thank you for doing everything that you're involved in. As we say on our show, thank you for helping to create a better tomorrow for all of us. It's a really very inspiring story.
Thank you, Ira. It was a pleasure to be with you today. And I hope we can stay in touch much, much more after this and really become friends with you, your wife, your daughter, your son, and just create, as I said, one connection at a time, because I think that we have met, and you getting in touch is not, the universe has a plan. And so I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for doing that first step and being patient to finding a date that works for both of us. And I'm looking forward to keep in touch with you and yeah, seeing what comes next.
Absolutely. Great seeing you.